right, hi there guys. Sorry I can't be here with you, but we are going to do some practice together. I'm going to do a problem, and then you're going to do a problem and check. So I'm going to do number 1, and I want you to do it with me. So we're going to set this up together. We have 2x plus 2 equals, and what's nice here is I have one term equals 0. So if you notice, there's not variables on both sides. So I can right away start solving my two-step equation. I'm going to take my term that's all by itself to the other side by adding or subtracting. So I'm going to subtract 2 on both sides. That cancels. I bring down my 2 times x, or 2x, equals, and then I'm going to do 0 minus 2. Again, and use your calculator, it's negative 2. So I'm going to put a little line there to show where I'm at in my work. My next step is I undo this 2 times x, so I do divide by 2, divide by 2. Those cancel out over here. I'm left with my x equals, and then be careful again, calculator, negative 2 divided by 2 would give me negative 1. So that's my x. I'm going to put that right in my solution right away. This seems to be the tricky part, plugging it back in. But what's nice about this one, we see that it already tells us what y equals. Y is right here. So y equals 0. So that's my solution point. So I want you to go ahead, and I'm going to have you pause this video, and I'm going to have you do number 4 because it's very, very similar. So you're going to pause and then do number 4 and then check your work against mine. Okay, so you should be unpausing right now, and you should have tried number 4 on your own. So just check your work against mine. I set them equal to each other. Again, this was a similar problem, so it was a two-step equation, and what was nice is it told me what y equals. So this should be your solution, 1, 8. So I'm going to go to number 2, so I'm going back up, and I'm going to do number 2 with you. So I want you to make sure we're copying down the notes with me. Again, I'm putting a 1 in front of here, so when I go to copy this down, I have 1x minus 6, and I'm going to set that equal to my other one, 8x plus 1. Sorry, that's a little sloppy, but it'll do. So my first step is to move my variable term to the other side by adding or subtracting. So that's a positive 8x, so I'm going to do minus 8x, and I'm going to minus 8x. These cancel. I'm left with, this is where you have to be careful, use your calculator. It is 1 minus 8. That would get me a negative 7, and my x stays with it. Again, I haven't used my minus 6 or negative 6, same thing. So I bring it down, and then I'm going to put my line in here to show the division of my work. I have an equal sign, and then I have not used, there's still a positive 1 over here, so I'm going to drop that down to just be 1. Now I'm at a two-step equation. Remember, the first step for a two-step equation is to get rid of the number by itself by doing the opposite. So instead of minus 6, I'm going to add 6 to both sides. That cancels on the side of the variable, and I bring down my negative 7 times x, or negative 7x, equals. And then in my calculator, 1 plus 6 gives me 7. My last step is to get rid of division or multiplication. This reads negative 7 times x, so I'm going to divide to get rid of it. Divide everything by negative 7, those cancel out, and x equals 7 divided by negative 7 is negative 1. So I'm going to put that in there. Then, to find my y, this seems to be the hardest part. We pick one of our equations. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick this top one. Y equals 1x minus 6. And I'm actually going to get rid of this 1x. I'm going to just make it go back to normal and say x, and then it's minus 6. We already know what x is, so I plug my x in. So it then is y equals negative 1, which is my x, and then the minus 6. And then I get y equals, well, -1 minus 6, if you put it in your calculator, should give you -7. So to find my y, I pick one of these equations, and I plug in x, whatever my x value is that I solve for. It doesn't matter which one you pick. So there is my solution point. So now I want you to pause the video, and I want you to try to do number 3 on your own, and then when you are all done, you're going to unpause it and check your work. Okay, so you hopefully have done your problem if you're at this point, because you've unpaused your video and you're checking your work against mine. So you notice I set them equal to each other in the green up here. I then moved the variable terms over, and I had a 2-step equation that I solved. I got that x equals 3. And the hardest part, again, seems to be finding the y, so we plug it back into one of our equations. I chose this bottom equation and rewrote it. Y equals 6 times x minus 20. We already found what x equals, so you would have y equals 6 times our x was 3, if you did this correctly, minus 20. And then I just plugged all that in my calculator. 6 times 3 minus 20 gives me -2. So there's my solution point. I'm going to do one more with you, and then you're going to do one on your own. I do want to do the one with I'm going to go down to 7. I want to do one with a fraction in it, because you should be able to do one with a fraction. You need a calculator to do this. You can use the one on your phone or the one on the computer. I also put a link to downloading a graphing calculator app on the stream and sent it to email, so you can use that too. So again, I'm just going to set this up. The process is not the same. So -5 x, and then that says +0. We didn't really need that part. So just in case, I'm going to actually, instead of +0, I'm going to just get rid of the 0 part, and then equals -3x minus 19. So from here, I've set them equal to each other. I'm going to move my variable term to the other side. So instead of -3x, I do +3x plus 3x. So again, over here, what happens is I need to do the math with my calculator. I'm going to type in -5 divided by 8, or -5/8 as a fraction, plus 3. That's going to tell me how many x's I have. So when you put that in your calculator, you end up with, I want you to keep it this way. It's probably easier to do the work. However, it is a decimal that does terminate, so you could also write, I'm going to show you the other way to write it. Let me move this up here. We can have it one way like this, where if I bring that down, it's 19. If I go ahead and take -5/8 plus 3, I get 19 over 8, or your calculator might have said 2.375, and then you have to remember the x's with it, equals -19. Either way, these say the same thing. Whether you want it as a decimal or a fraction, it's up to you, because the calculator is going to do the work anyway. So I'm going to use the one with the decimal just because it seems to be a little bit easier when you punch it in your calculator. So we're left with dividing. So divide by 2.375 cancels, divide by 2.375. And what happens is actually equals, it should be -8. It comes out to an integer, which is a whole number that's a negative. So I got -8. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my x and plug it back into my equation. I don't want to use the equation with the fraction because it's harder for me. I'm going to use this equation. Y equals -3 times x, and then minus 19. We already figured out what x is, so I'm going to rewrite it. Y equals -3 times our x is -8. We already found that right here. And I'm plugging that in. That's all I'm doing. Minus 19. So again, you type all that in your calculator, and you get a positive 5. Negative 3 times negative 8 minus 19. So there is my ordered pair. So again, it's no different even if you have a fraction. Your calculator is going to do the work. You may write it as a decimal like I did, because it just makes it a little easier. You don't run the risk of accidentally not putting the fraction in right. But if you were to do it as a fraction, that's okay too. So I want you to try number 8 on your own. So pause the video right now, and I want you to try this one on your own, the same way we just did this, and then you're going to unpause it when you're ready to check. So pause the video right now. Okay, so you should be checking yours now. This one was a little more challenging because it had the fraction in it. And if you noticed, when you moved the 1/7 over, so right here you were subtracting 5 minus 1/7, you should have got 34 over 7. To do it as a decimal, it actually just kept going and going and going. It was really long, so I kept it as a fraction. So then we would just, it's a two-step equation, so then I added 3 to both sides, and I ended up with 0, so 34 over 7 times x equals 0, so you divide by the 34 over 7. So it actually ended up, because 0 is on the top, x is 0 anyway. So then when you plug it back in, this seems to be the tough part, we take one of the equations. I took the equation without the fraction, because I thought it would be easier, and I just plugged it in. We had 5 times x minus 3, so my x I actually figured out was 0, so we just replaced it. 5 times 0 minus 3, so that just leaves us with a negative 3. So you should have got this answer. If you did it wrong, you might want to go back, try it again, and then look at my work. So we're going to do one more together. So skipping around here, the last one we're going to do together is going to be number 5. So I have my x minus 5, so I'm going to do 1x minus 5 equals, and then negative 7x plus 11. Make sure you are watching me do this and copying the work too. If you need to pause because I'm going too fast, that's fine. I'm drawing in my line. The first thing I do is I take this x term to the other side. So instead of minus, I'm going to add it, plus 7x. These cancel. I'm drawing my line in to show the work. 1 plus 7 is 8x. I have not used this minus 5, so I bring it down, equals, and I'm left with a positive 11 over here. Now I'm left with the two-step equation. So I get rid of this minus 5 first by doing plus 5 on both sides. That cancels over here. 8x equals 16. Last up, I divide by 8, and I divide by 8. So I get x equals 2. Because 16 divided by 8 is 2. To find my y, I'm going to come over here in green. I'm going to pick one of these equations. I'm going to pick the top one. Y equals x minus 5. And then my y equals, my x is 2. 2 minus 5. I plugged in my x because my x is right here. So y equals negative 3. So my solution is 2, negative 3. So at this point, I want you to pause your video. The last one you're going to do is number 6, and then you check your work against mine. Okay, so this is the last one you're checking, number 6. You're looking at my work. I set it up where I didn't get rid of the plus 0, and that's okay. So I ended up moving my variable to the other side first by doing minus 2x. 1 minus 2, that's a negative 1x. So if you made any mistakes, that might have been where it was at. And then I would have added 0 to both sides, but that doesn't really matter. So I crossed that out and brought it down, negative 1x, and then equals 6. And then I divided both sides. I got x equals negative 6. And then I plugged it back in. Again, I used this equation, and I'm going to use the other one too. It doesn't matter. Y equals 2 times whatever my x is plus 6. We already said that x is negative 6. So we get 2 times negative 6 plus 6. Well, again, it comes out to be negative 6. On the other side, you can see that I did it here, but my solution is -6, -6.